Amari's playing with Saoirse, who is my sister's cat. As I mentioned in a couple videos before, my family, my parents, and my younger sister are coming to live with us, and they dropped the cat off about a week early. So if you hear giggling and weirdness in the background, or like see this, that's what that is. Elliot's also trying to take a nap, so we'll see how this goes. Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have my September book haul and wrap up. So I will leave a timestamp link down below in case you're only here for my wrap up, because I was a little bit bad in September with my book haul. We'll get into that first actually, but yeah, I have a huge stack here that I was not planning on having this month. So yeah, let's jump right on in. Okay, so the first book I have here was a pre-order. It is Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. This is the second book in the Amari, I don't even know what the series is called. It's not called the Amari series, but the first book was Amari and the Night Brothers, which I read last year, absolutely loved. This book came out at the very beginning of September, I'm pretty sure, or at the very end of August. I think it was beginning of September. It took 3 freaking weeks to get to my house. I had pre-ordered it through Barnes & Noble, which, let me tell you, I have a Barnes & Noble membership. Membership used to get you free express shipping, like within a couple business days. Like, they were rivaling Amazon Prime with the shipping speed. Yes, some books did not get to you on release day because they're embargoed by the publishers. Like, they are physically not allowed to ship out books before the date of publication, so it would still take a couple days to get to you. But now, membership does not get you express shipping. It gets you free standard shipping, which means it comes in like 3 to 5 business days. However, my book got lost in the mail. UPS shipped it to the USPS because now that it's not express shipping, they transfer it to my post office. Well, it was supposed to be delivered like September 2nd or something like that, and it was like September 12th when I was like, I still have not heard anything. I couldn't look up anything through UPS, so I went to the post office. They didn't have it. They said it's in transit and that it could still take up to another week to get it, which is ridiculous when I'm supposed to get it within like 3 to 5 business days. And then it still never happened. So I had to call Barnes & Noble customer service. They had to send me a replacement. The replacement did actually get here in about 3 days. So that's what this is. The original book has still not moved. They sent me, Barnes & Noble customer service, sent me a like return sheet so I can return the original book through the post office or through UPS or whatever it is. It has still not arrived. I don't know how they're expecting me to return a book that has just literally disappeared in the postal service. But yeah, I'm very excited for this middle grade fantasy sequel. I want to read it desperately. I was hoping to read it in September, but it took until like the 21st or 22nd to actually arrive. Another book that I purchased this month is Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This is a book that I actually read this year. As an ARC, I read it. It was my first book of the year. 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely loved it. And I just never picked up a physical copy. That was a my bad sort of thing, because I desperately want it on my shelves. I want to put it behind me over here where I have all of my like favorite books, because first book of the year, it was a hit. This is a sci-fi horror, which is not too much leaning into the actual horror. Like, there are definite horror elements, but I was very pleasantly surprised by the good balance between the sci-fi and the horror in it. And yeah, I just absolutely love this one. And then another book that I got is Our Bloody Pearl by D.N. Bryn. This is the Nerdy Book Box edition. I actually bought a one-off box from Nerdy Book Box because they didn't have any subscription spots open. And I'm not entirely too sure what boxes I want in the next year, because so far I'm really only doing a Lumen Crate, which I love their designs, but Nerdy Book Box is specifically a box for indie books, and this is one that I actually read last year in 2021, was one of my top books of the year. Like, I think it was number 2 overall of all the books I read last year. And so I had to have it. I am still partial to the original cover because it is gorgeous as well, but like it has our main character of Pearl here, and this is a gorgeous book. They also have like these gradient sprayed edges, which is just so cool. And this is a book that is very like diverse, has LGBTQ characters, non-binary characters, A-spec characters, we have people of color, we have disabilities. Like I just fell in love with absolutely everything about this, and we're dealing with sirens and pirates, and so it does get sort of brutal at times. I desperately want to reread this one, and I did read the like sequel because it's These Treacherous Tides is like the series, and then it has smaller books and smaller series within it. So I read Once Stolen earlier this year as well, which I did enjoy, not quite as much as this one, but it was still fun, and then there's more coming out in the series as well. And so yes, I obviously had to get this one. It's already been read, already been loved. I just had to have it. Now, those 3 books are all I had to haul for the longest time this month. Like until a week ago. Like when you see this video, it'll be exactly a week because I went on Thursday and you're gonna see this on Thursday. I went to Barnes & Noble. I went to the bookstore for the first time in months. Like I think the last time I went was January or February of this year. It has been so long, and I knew by going I was opening myself up to buying way too many books. And I told my husband I'm mostly just going to see about kids books because we haven't really bought too many books for Elliot, and Presley hadn't had any new ones in a while, but also manga because I've been on like a pretty strict, sort of strict book buying ban this year. I haven't gotten any new mangas, and because of that there are some series that I've been wanting to read and finish and all this kind of stuff that I haven't been able to do. So I knew I was probably going to be walking out with quite a few manga, and I knew that was going to happen. So I went to the bookstore, and so yeah, I walked out with way too many manga. So let's just go through this. So the main reason I went was to finish, can we do this? Here we go. Finish the series of Sweat and Soap. So I have volumes 5 through 11 here by Kintetsu Yamada. I started this last year. I think I read the first 4, well obviously because I have 5 through 11 here. I read the first 4, absolutely fell in love. Like I read the first 2 and then 3 and 4, and I knew I love this series. Like every single volume has gotten 5 out of 5 stars for me. I knew I wanted to complete this. It is officially complete. These 11 volumes are the whole thing, and they did have all the volumes I needed at Barnes & Noble, so that's what I picked up. If they would have been missing like volume 8, I would have only gotten 5, 6, and 7, so that was the plan. That's what I ended up getting. This is a series that sounds a little bit weird because it is Sweat and Soap. It's these 2 characters. It is an adult romance, and they both work at this like fragrance company or soap company, toiletry company, and he's basically the person creating these scents for their lines of soap, and she works in accounting. She loves their soaps because she has a problem with how much she sweats, that kind of thing. She's always very self-conscious about it, self-conscious of how she smells, but he absolutely loves how she smells and gains inspiration through smelling her, and that's why it's a little bit weird. But for the 4 volumes that I have read so far, their relationship is like so amazing. I absolutely love them as characters, love the romance in their relationship, love the friendship in their relationship, and so yeah, I knew I wanted to finish my series. So that was the whole reason I went to Barnes & Noble. This is not all that I bought, but this is 7 volumes of that series. Another one that I picked up is Can't Stop Cursing You Volume 2 by Kensuke Koba. This is another volume that I read the first one of last year and I desperately wanted to continue. I know in Japanese there's volume 3 and 4 as well, but I don't know if those are out in English yet, or if they're going to be coming out soon, or if it's just my store didn't have it. But they did have volume 2, and so I knew I needed to pick this up because when I got volume 1, it was around the time volume 2 came out, because they were out of volume 1 for so long. and then it finally got reprinted, and then when volume 2 came out, they only had volume 1 because volume 2 was out. So I desperately just had to pick up volume 2, and I want to continue with the series. This reminds me a lot of like Death Note, but I think I actually like it better. If you watched my unhaul anytime recently, because I did put an unhaul out this month, you will know I DNF'd Death Note at like volume 5 of the Black Edition, I think. So, yeah, I had some issues with the ending of the series and stuff, but I do like this. It's like a paranormal, ghosty, cursey type of series, so it's not quite like the same, God and a Death Note thing as Death Note, but the characterization of some of these characters reminds me of that a lot, and I just have a lot of fun reading it, so I needed to pick this up. Then I also picked up volume 4 of Boys Run the Riot by Kaito. This is going to be the last volume of this series as well. I believe this one came out around January of this year, but because I wasn't going in and buying manga and things like that, I was not able to pick this up. I read the first 3 volumes last year when it was coming out because they did a pretty short run of this because I think it's a relatively new series, but yeah, I absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars for all of those volumes, and I needed this one. This is a manga series about a trans masked teen trying to come to terms with like coming out and stuff at school, because they do still have to dress as a female there, and like their friendships and realizing that not everybody is either a boy or a girl. We did have some non-binary characters and things like that in here as well, and I absolutely love this. It is also own voices for the author, who is also trans mask, and so yeah, I really, really love this one, and I was upset that I hadn't been able to finish this yet, but I now have the last volume, so this should be something I finish soon. So those, besides a couple other series, were the ones that I was knowing I was going into Barnes & Noble looking for. The other series I was looking for, one was like Perfect World, and they didn't have the next couple volumes that I need in that series, so I'm gonna have to go find that one later, but I still found more manga to bring home. The next one is The Liminal Zone by Junji Ito. This is the newest one from him in English, and I collect all of the Junji Ito stuff. This should have a collection of short stories. I don't know too much else about it. I'm pretty sure these are short stories. On the back it says, "What destiny awaits them after the wailing?" And it's very creepy that way. But yeah, definitely need to read this one, and it should be good for the spooky season. And then the last manga I picked up is the hardcover. Oh, this is in plastic wrap still, so it's gonna be very shiny. The Girl from the Other Side. This is by Nagabe. I have not read these yet, but I have heard amazing things about them. It's definitely been on my radar, something that I wanted to read. And this one contains the first 3 volumes in a very nice collector's edition. And so yeah, I was suckered in by the pretty cover, and it's a hardcover, and it has all 3 volumes. And so the fact that it is like $43, I think it ends up being pretty equivalent to what the price of the individual books would have been, and I had my 10% off with Barnes & Noble, so not too crazy. But yeah, this one is going to be, I think, sort of cutesy, but also like paranormal stuff. I don't fully know, but I know it's a hit, and I want to read it. Now, that should have been everything that I bought at Barnes & Noble. However, it wasn't. I did pick up a couple other things that were not manga. One was Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. This is the first book of her middle grade horror series. I believe they're companion novels more than like an actual series, but it is middle grade horror. I've been wanting to read it for a while, and again, if I have any time during this spooky season, so again around like this month October, maybe next month November, I want to read it. And then I also picked up The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is her adult romance series, but I do believe it's paranormal because I do believe there is ghosty stuff. I don't fully know, but again, this has been on my radar for a while. I've been desperately wanting to read it and just haven't yet. The color on this camera, can we get better? Can we fix this, please? That's the color of the book. That's a little bit better, right? But yeah, so adult romance, I picked it up. I walked by it, I picked it up. Now, that should be the end of the book haul, right? It's not, because I had pre-ordered a set of books through the Bookish box the end of last year, I believe it was. So this is before all the Bookish Box drama that has happened recently. I have not been subscribed to the Bookish Box before. I only purchased these books because I liked the other books that I've read by the author, and let me tell you, these books are gorgeous. But let me see if I can pick this up while holding a sleeping baby. We have the box set of the Awakens series by Elise Kova. So let me pull them out individually. That's going to be easier. There are 5 books in this series, and I actually am going to talk about a different book by Elise Kova in my wrap-up that is technically part of a spin-off series from this series. You don't have to read them in order, though, necessarily. I'm pretty sure there might be like little hints and pieces of stuff, little cameos maybe, because the book series that I'm currently reading that's currently coming out is like in the future of this series. But it is YA fantasy with, I think, some romance in it, but it's like elemental magic. So obviously these covers are gorgeous. I have a paper somewhere, and I don't know where it is, that explains who did what with this, like who the artist is and who did the edges, because everything about these books is absolutely gorgeous. So we have a gorgeous cover, and I don't know if you guys were able to tell, but on the spines fit together. I'm not going to be able to hold up that whole series again, but gorgeous. So we have book 1, Awakens, and when you open it up, we have the same design actually as the front of the dust jacket, underneath the dust jacket, I guess, in case you want to like flip it over. But then we have a gorgeous naked hardcover here. Like, I'm so in love with how these look. The back also, like, the whole thing is gorgeous. And then also the end papers, and they're all gonna be signed. Like, I'm in love. Elise Kova in general has gorgeous books. She is an indie author. All of these are self-published, but she makes sure that all of her editions, standard editions, the hardcovers are gorgeous. And I actually do usually end up buying, if I want like physical books from her, buying off her Etsy, because then you can get signed books as well. Book 2 is Fire Falling. So again, gorgeous book. Oh, let's do the edges first. Here's those flamey edges. Underneath we have a really nice like brick red book, and again, same design as the cover. Here are the end papers. I'm just like seriously so in love with the design of these books. Book 3 is Earth's End. Again, just so pretty. Here's the edges. So Earth, a nice like dark green hardcover, and the edges. Book 4 is Water's Wrath, and then it looks like we have like waves on the edges. If it'll, I have my camera on auto and it's wanting to very much bring up the contrast, but here is the book. It's like a gray. That's my sister's cat. Here are the end papers. And then the last one I think might be my favorite. It's Crystal Crowned, mostly because when we get to it, so here's some crystals. It is a very nice purple hardcover. Like, I just love the color of this so much. And here are the end papers. So yeah, everything about this I'm loving. I love the series that she's currently writing that is set in the same world, and so I have not read any of these before, but I do know, I believe it's Jessie from The Bookish Mom has read Awakens before, I think maybe the entire series, and really has enjoyed it, and so she has started this new series as well. And so yeah, I have some good high, not like super high hopes, but because like this is one of the first series she ever wrote, but like based on what I do love about the current series that I'm reading, I have a feeling that I'm going to love this one as well, and I could not pass up the gorgeous editions, so I didn't. And then I did actually end up getting one ebook as well. They had a romance like day. They do this every so often where tons and tons of romance authors put a book up for free. So I went through the genres that I like, and went through the plots that I like. I had to skim a lot because like there are hundreds of books that you could download for free. I only picked one out this time. I think the last time this happened I picked like 7 or 8, but I ended up getting C. Gockel's Archangel Down. So the name is Archangel Down by C. Gockel. I don't know why I said it weird the first time, but I did. This is the first book in the Archangel project, and this is going to be a sci-fi with romance, I'm assuming, because it is part of the romance day thing that they did. I don't know too much about this one, but it did sound interesting. In the year 2432, humans think they are alone in the universe. They're wrong. Commander Noah Sato plans a peaceful leave on her home planet Ludecia? I don't know. But winds up interrogated and imprisoned for her involvement in the Archangel project, a project she knows nothing about. Professor James Sinclair wakes in the snow, not remembering the past 24 hours or knowing why he is being pursued. The only thing he knows is that he has to find Commander Sato, a woman he's never met. A military officer from the colonies and a civilian from old Earth, they couldn't have less in common, but they have to work together to save the lives of millions and their own. Every step of the way, they are haunted by the final words of a secret transmission: the Archangel is down. So yeah, I love sci-fi, I like romance. This is the one that caught my eye. So yeah, that actually is the last book to haul. I know this part probably took much longer than we were hoping for, but as always, I'm going to let you guys know sort of how my TBR is doing now that I had to haul so many. So at the end of last month, I was at 707 books. That is physical books and ebooks on my TBR. I did end up doing an unhaul this month. Like I mentioned before, I will leave a link down below in case you have not seen it, where I unhauled 74 unread books. So 74 books from my physical TBR. I haven't gone through any ebooks or anything like that. 74 books from my physical TBR have been gone now. I also ended up reading 6 books off of that TBR during the month, both physical and ebooks. And then even though I actually have 20 books that I'm adding back onto my TBR from this haul today, I am down to 647 books, which is crazy ridiculous to me because of the fact that I started this year at 661. So I'm officially down below my starting number. I'm very happy about that. I think this is probably going to be the biggest haul for the rest of the year. I'm not planning on hauling a bunch of stuff near the end of the year, so hopefully my number just keeps going down and down and down as I'm reading things. But yeah, I went from 707 to 647. So yeah, very, very happy about that. Now that's enough time talking about the books that I hauled, so let's jump into the wrap-up. We are going to start with the stats, just like always. And so, in the month of September, I did read 13 books for a total of 2,274 pages. I'm actually very happy that we're above the 2,000 page mark, because ultimately, that's my goal for pages while reading during the month. I always plan on trying to get around 2,000 pages read. It hasn't happened in the last few months just because dealing with a newborn, trying to get back into the swing of things, that kind of stuff. But she is 3 months now, doing a little bit better sleeping at night, although right now she's like trying to burrow into my chest. Girl, you gotta have your nose available to breathe at some point. So yeah, pretty happy about that. Of those books, 2 of them were physical books and 11 were ebooks. 3 of them were novels and 10 were graphic novels. So again, not doing as much book reading as like comics and graphic novels. Still counts as reading, but they are obviously quicker to get through. 7 of them were sci-fi, 3 were horror, 2 were romance, and 1 was a fantasy. 3 of those books were indie published and 10 were traditionally published. 2 were young adults and 11 of them were adult titles. 6 of them I borrowed from my library, and 5 of them were ones I already owned. 1 of them was an ARC, and 1 of them was a book that I bought this year. And then as for the star ratings, I did have 2 3 stars, 1 3.5 star, 4 4 stars, and 6 5-star reads. So we're going to then jump into the books, starting with the ones I rated the lowest and going up to my favorites of the month. So this is going to be a little bit weird to talk about because I'm actually going to talk about a 3-star and a couple 4 stars at the same time, because I did read The Red Mother by Jeremy Hahn. I read volumes 1, 2, and 3, which I believe is the entire series. I just realized that some of my stats are wrong, because I had the first 2 that I purchased from last year in I believe they're published by Boom Comics, a humble bundle of those. But there's only 3 volumes in the series, so I owned 2, but I didn't have the 3rd one, so I actually borrowed it on Comixology through like Kindle Unlimited, that kind of stuff. So my stats are wrong. Let me just say that now. I'm not going to go in probably at the beginning of this video and change it, but I will put up the new stats here because I do need to fix it now. I ended up having 6 library books, 4 owned books, 1 ARC, 1 book I bought this year, and 1 Kindle Unlimited. That should be right now. Okay, but going back to what I was saying, I read all 3 volumes of The Red Mother by Jeremy Hahn. This is a horror comic series, and this is the entire thing, all 3 volumes, where this woman ended up having her boyfriend like abducted, and she was caught up in the aftermath with it as well, where somebody like gouged out her eye or stabbed her in the eye. I don't fully remember exactly how it happened, but so she is missing an eye, and then from the aftermath of that, she's having these flashes of something red. Like her vision goes red, and there's some paranormal element, some very big hulking black shadow sort of thing that she can see but nobody else can, and it's all because she is missing her eye. There's something to do with the Red Mother, and it is quite graphic, quite horror related. Volume 1 and 2 I gave 4 stars, which is why this is a little bit weird to talk about currently, but yeah, because it is very much like a creepy drawing style, like the art style very much works for a horror comic series, and our main character does puzzles, and so she ends up getting swept up into like this puzzle creation sort of thing as well. And I did like the first 2 volumes, although they both sort of end on a cliffhanger, so you do need to then read more to figure out what's going on. But the 3rd volume I only gave 3 stars, mostly because I don't understand how and why we wrapped things up the way we did. There were some definite tones of like, oh shit, stuff is going to happen, people aren't telling her the truth, all this kind of stuff. Like we could sort of see stuff that she wasn't seeing, but when it actually came time to find out like what was going on with her eye and the redness and the big black creature that is potentially following her, this kind of stuff, it was very lackluster. Like we didn't actually get an explanation for why anything was happening, and then there was a conclusion, but it just felt like it wrapped up very, very quickly. All 3 volumes I believe were the exact page number count, but volume 3 felt much quicker. Like it felt like we didn't have enough conclusion to the actual story of what was happening. Like there was just no explanation for why this stuff was happening, because there were definite horror and paranormal elements, but it just ended. So while I did enjoy most of what I was reading, I really do wish there was a stronger ending to that series, because it could have been really, really good. My other 3 stars is a little disappointing for me. It's the Ex Hex by Aaron Sterling. So this, I know some people I think loved this more than I did. It was okay for me. I am curious about other books, because I think there's a companion novel sequel to this one, dealing with the cousin of the main character here. But basically this follows a group of witches, and when I say witches, like they're basically family related. So our main character lives like with or by her cousin and her aunt, and they're all witches. And then she has an ex-boyfriend from when she was 19 who is also a witch with his family, but they did not break up amicably when she was 19, and so when he left, her and her cousin put a curse on him. It was supposed to be for fun, like not a real curse, but it ended up actually being a real curse. And so when he comes back to town almost 10 years later, the curse actually sort of like invokes itself, and he is cursed, and it starts to have bigger consequences for the whole town. And my thing with this is it's supposed to be like a second chance romance, but we're starting the story after they have broken up at 19. And then when they come back together at like 28, they just automatically start having feelings, and very lusty feelings at that. There's no build-up because the story started before the original build-up, and then we're continuing the story with like feeling like there's no pause in between. So the romance wasn't as fully developed as I would have liked, but also this is a book that is a romance, but it's also supposed to be very much dealing with the curse that is put on this man and on this town because of him coming back to town. And it felt like there was no urgency whatsoever in this book, because instead of trying to actually figure out what the heck is going on and how to lift the curse, they're banging each other instead. Like literally, I have to say, at least the character realizes, like there's one point where our main character of Vivian is called Vivi. I wish she was just called Viv. I hate the name Vivi. I'm sorry, that's just a me thing. But there is one point where she full out mentions in one of her like thoughts, I just hit the baby with the book, I'm so sorry. In her thoughts that like, oh, we really should be focusing on this curse, but we haven't done anything all week because we can't keep our hands off each other. That's so bad of us. And it's like, okay, at least you're acknowledging that you're not doing shit, but how am I as the reader supposed to believe that there is any sort of urgency or consequences going to happen if the characters don't believe it? Like, there is a curse, it's fucking up the whole town, but they'd rather have sex with each other than deal with the curse. Like, I don't like that. Then, this is a pretty short book, but the most interesting part, the most time-sensitive part of this starts 50 pages from the end. There's no third act breakup or anything. It's like a third act, like, drama almost. Like, they're like, oh, by the way, here's what the consequence of your action will be if you don't fix the curse. And it's 50 pages from the end. So they fix everything in like 20 to 30 pages, and then there's a conclusion. Like, that's it. The only time they even slightly feel like they're taking this seriously is like 20 to 30 pages at the end of the book, and then because it was so quick, it doesn't feel like it really had any obstacles for them to overcome. Like, I really, really wish the curse aspect would have played a bigger part in the motivation of the characters compared to just like, oh, my ex is back, let's have sex. Like, I obviously had some issues with the pacing of this one and the motivations of stuff. The writing wasn't bad. I just really wish we would have been focused more on certain aspects of this book than getting into people's pants without romantic development either. Then my 3.5-star read was Space Trash Volume 1 by Jen Woodall. This was the arc that I read. It is a graphic novel, I believe, versus a comic. And it's about these like teenage girls in space. It's supposed to be something where like Earth has become sort of uninhabitable, and so everybody's living on space stations and stuff like that. And we follow these 3 girls who bunk together. I don't know if it's like a boarding school or if they're orphans or what it is, but we don't really have much talk about parents or anything like that. And we're just sort of getting to know them a little bit in this first volume. We didn't really have much besides slice of life stuff. Like, we don't really have any motivations for stuff going on. We don't know if there's like bigger stuff going on, except for one character does mention that there is potentially still life on Earth when they didn't think there was. And that's basically it. Like, literally like one sort of aside, and we're just getting to know the characters. The art style is interesting, but I don't know if we've got enough in this first volume for me to want to continue with this series, because I love sci-fi, like I've mentioned before. but I was just sort of expecting more than like an introduction to the characters. Moving into the books that I rated 4 stars, again, we did have The Red Mother, Volume 1 and 2, but I also had The Duke Who Didn't by Courtney Milan. This is the first book that I read this month. It is historical fiction romance, and the thing about this is I'm not the biggest historical fiction person, but I did enjoy this for the most part. I didn't think it needed to be historical. There was a lot of things that happened that felt like it could have been very much present day, and there was only a couple times where I was like, oh, I guess I could see why this needed to be historical. So the fact that it didn't need to be historical, I don't know if that made it better for me, because like the writing style even didn't feel historical. Like I hate when people try to make historical books sound like they were written like in Charles Dickens times. So like, yeah, I think we're good that way. But yeah, it didn't feel historical. So again, I don't know if it was a good thing that way, or if it was something that I just kept thinking about in the back of my mind, like, why is it not feeling extra historical? Because like a lot of the stuff that happened, we didn't really need it to be historical. But basically, this is another sort of second chance romance. They didn't really have a full romance before, but it is sort of our main guy character, who is a secret duke, coming back into town after like a 3-year period of leave, and trying to convince our main female character that he does love her, like this is something that is true, and he wants to marry her. One thing I will say, I absolutely love the character of Jeremy, who is our Duke character, because he for sure is that like trope of the guy who fell first. He absolutely adores her and just goes out of his way to try to convince her and her father that he loves her and wants to marry her. Like I absolutely loved him. I don't know why it's not a full 5 stars, except for I think partially that historical element of it. And I was wishing for a little bit more going on. Like the one thing that I absolutely loved was him as a character. There was a couple places that I think fell a little bit flat with some of our other like events and characters, but I absolutely loved how devoted he was, and so that like made it for me. My other 4 stars is A Hunt of Shadows by Elise Kova. So this is the second book in the Trial of Sorcerers series, which is a companion / sequel sometime to the Awakens series that I talked about. I gave this one a 4 stars, whereas I gave the first book of the series 5 out of 5 stars. I read it last year, absolutely loved it. That one has a like magical trial, and it's very drama filled. There is like a lot that goes on. Some of it is very dark, and this is obviously happening in the direct aftermath of that book. Our main character of Ira is now traveling to a different continent because they're going to have some games there that I believe it's like her kingdom has sent like a princess to go marry a different kingdom's prince, and so it's going to have this whole like thing going on. Well, this book definitely feels like second book syndrome a little bit. We didn't get to any actual magical trials in this game because everything was like on a hiatus, because one of the bad guys from the first book sort of escapes, and she's trying to figure out what happened with that. And I'm even now, like this is the last book I read in September, I'm already like a little bit confused about like what did I actually pick up from this book. Not in a bad way. I love the writing style, I love the characters, I love that we did get a little bit more romance in this one, I love that we got some more friendship with Ira and her friends in this one, but it was still just sort of like, it felt like in the middle of action. Like I really wished we would have actually gotten to the games and a little bit more into that, because I know there is some political intrigue coming on here as well. And I mean, I guess we sort of got a little bit of like conspiracy, and like there's a shadow organization sort of thing going on, but I don't know, it just didn't quite feel finished in a whole like story aspect. It definitely feels like a bridge between book 1 and I'm assuming book 3. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but it did have book 3 is going to be called A Tournament of Crowns, so that one will obviously be where we have the magical stuff, magical competition, because the first book was A Trial of Sorcerers, which had a magical competition. Book 3 is A Tournament of Crowns, that'll have a magical competition. So this just sort of feels like an in-between book. I still gave it 4 stars. I still really enjoyed reading it. It was very quick and easy to read, but it wasn't quite living up to the first book in the series. And then finally, I had 6 5-star reads. I reread all 6 volumes of Paper Girls, so obviously that is what I gave 5 stars. I actually did not read these in my physical versions, even though I have them. I borrowed them from my library on the Hoopla app because reading on my iPad, especially at night with her and that kind of stuff, it's just a little bit easier than trying to put a book light on a flimsy comic bind-up. But I absolutely love the series. I gave all 6 books 5 out of 5 stars, just like I did previously when I read these in 2020, I believe it was. 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely wanted to reread these, because the Amazon series came out a couple months ago. They have since been canceled, which is ridiculous because it ended on a huge cliffhanger. But let me tell you, with rereading these, there is so much more changed than I realized. Like, there are certain characters that they switch, like, who did what. So, like, in one part, we had, like, Erin's adult character doing stuff in the show, but it was actually Tiffany's adult character doing stuff in the book. And then we had different characters come in and play different parts in the TV show, and events just got a little muddied. I did still really like the TV show. The TV show ended up being less of the time travel sci-fi element and more of like a character study in relationships between friends and family, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I do feel like we missed a lot of these sci-fi elements. And in the TV show, from what I can understand, it looks like some of the stuff is a little bit out of order versus like how the time travel is here. I will say this is one of those series where like you have to suspend your disbelief for a while in the fact that you're not going to get answers on this time travel stuff until like volume 4 or 5 out of the entire 6 volumes. It comes together so beautifully though, and I think with the reread of it, I got a lot more out of it as well, because we start with volume 1, but explanations for what certain things happen in volume 1 don't come about until like volume 5, and then you're like, oh, that's what happened here. And then certain things that happen in volume 2 or 3, you get answers in volume 4 or 6. Like, everything does come together so beautifully, and I do think rereading it, even though it had been a couple years since I read it, like almost exactly 2 years since I read it, I did still get a little bit more enjoyment out of it from knowing certain things and how they came together, but also I had forgotten certain things, and so I was like, oh, that's how that happened again. Especially, I think, because I watched the TV show, I was expecting things to be a little bit more like, oh, this character's gonna do this, and then it ended up being a different character, and similar to that, but not quite. I still love the TV show. I wish we were getting more, because like I said, it ended on a huge cliffhanger, which was actually more time travel. Like, they could have brought in a whole bunch more time travel. But yeah, if you're somebody that needs answers right away, I don't know if this is something that you would necessarily enjoy. You might enjoy the show more, but if you're really here for the really weird, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, like so crazy time travel, things are overlapping, all this kind of stuff, read this. Read it all the way through. Volume 1 through volume 6, probably in 1 or 2 sittings. Like, you really, like, I actually read like 1 volume a day until the last couple days, where I read like, so I read like volume 1 one day, volume 2 one day, volume 3 and 4 one day, and volume 5 and 6 one day. Just because like it picks up momentum as you go, but like you need to sort of read them close together just because of the fact that like you need to remember stuff that happens in the first volume to get to the end, but it comes together so beautifully. And this is the same author, Brian K. Vaughan, as Saga, which I know a lot of people love. So if you love Saga, even though that's a different kind of sci-fi, try this one out. But yeah, so all of my 5-star reads this month was Paper Girls. They were rereads, but I absolutely loved them. She's farting. Okay, but that is it for this month. I hope that was everything. I think it was. Book haul, stats, wrap up. We should be good. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos up on Thursdays right now, so I will see you then. Bye.